Vaccine arguments are boiling over. Let's talk about how we can turn these into healthy conversations. Another emergency alert did not go as planned. If we're going to trust these systems, they need to work. We know Coloradans love their pets, even the people who sometimes have trouble affording their food. I know some people who can help. A bee researcher had a problem. Couldn't find the bee's nest.
I tried lots of other ways to do it before. Dogs just seem to be the best bet right now.
One dog in particular, though I'm guessing your dogs have also found a bee's nest or two, can quickly turn unpleasant, like this newscast. Next. The vaccine debate is tearing families apart. It's even prompting hate mail to doctors in our area. Our Anusha Roy explores whether there is a healthier way for us to have these contentious conversations, because they're not about to end.
Dr. Richard Zane is an infectious disease specialist, tapped for his expertise on COVID more times than we can count.
We have to keep our eyes on.
He's also candid about trying to get people's attention.
I've been pretty forthright saying that being vaccinated is societal obligation and an act of patriotism.
That attention comes with backlash.
Really, what I truly believe, and we've spoken about it before, is you get vaccinated for a number of reasons. One is to protect yourself. The other is to protect society.
There was even an anonymous complaint about what he said on TV to the Medical Oversight Agency.
To the licensing agency.
And it goes beyond that one comment. UC Health stopped a program where they were automatically offering the vaccine to patients coming in through their emergency department because of how angry some people got. Instead, doctors and nurses are ready to give it if a patient asks for it.
If you have had to step in on any family conversation so far, yes, is the answer to that.
Dr. Jody Thomas has seen families debate each other, too.
A lot of the decisions being made are around fears on both sides.
She's a psychologist and said the number one thing is to find common goals, which there are a lot of, even when fighting over vaccines.
We all would love to go back to doing the things we want to do effectively. We all would love our kids back in school safely.
To see those common goals, though, requires taking the temperature down.
That's what we really have to kind of challenge ourselves to do. The moment that we are taking a moment to truly be curious and wonder about that other person's perspective and being able to empathize.
Talking logistics, like what happens if a kid or a parent falls sick, brings that conversation back into more common territory.
How this impacts us and our lives and who we are specifically, rather than sort of this larger abstract tribalism idea.
So Dr. Thomas works with a lot of kids and families with medical conditions. And she said, especially with families with maybe divorced parents or just a lot of friction and things can't be resolved amongst themselves, that's when things start to go in front of a judge. And a lot of times the judge then is turning to the doctors to help resolve the issue. Kyle, we did also check in with a couple of other health systems locally. Some have anecdotally been hearing about this backlash, but said so far the good news is that hasn't happened to them.
So vaccines are not new. They're 200 plus years old. The idea of employers or schools mandating vaccines also not new, but this debate is challenging families in new ways.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we've had situations where parents may not be seeing eye to eye, but what's different this time around is the immediacy of it. It's about going to the grocery store, that birthday party on Saturday, or spending time with a parent who may be vaccinated or not vaccinated. And all of that, Kyle, has just been elevating these conversations and adding so many more layers of emotions to it.
Hopefully, if anybody can figure out how to talk civilly, it's family members, because let's face it, unlike the public, they hopefully love each other. All right, Thank you, Anusha. A parade of Republican figures from Colorado, both elected and unelected, are being featured at the My Pillow guy Mike Lindell's election fraud conference this week. 5 Colorado Republicans, by my count, at this forum for conspiracy theorists who are claiming without evidence that the presidential election was rigged. Their big get so far, like of the entire conference, is a Republican county clerk from Mesa County whose office is currently under investigation for a voting systems breach that gave internal information to right-wing conspiracy theorists. Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters was the star of the show last night, appearing with Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert's former campaign manager. They did not offer proof of election fraud. Clerk Peters, whose office is under a criminal investigation as well as a separate investigation by state elections regulators, is promising that she will come back to the conference with more tomorrow. Today's session featured Ron Watkins, a man that some researchers believe was behind the QAnon conspiracy theory at one point. That, of course, is the idea that Democrats will be rounded up and executed for eating babies. During today's session, Watkins pored over files that they said were from Mesa County before he suddenly read aloud a warning from his attorney that the files came from a stolen hard drive from Mesa County. Stolen, he said, by someone other than him. All of this is evidence-free, of course, and it is pretty out there. But there are investigations in our state right now to see if Mesa County's voting systems were compromised. That would be a big deal if true. And then there would be steps needed taken to secure the systems prior to the next election. And it's possible that criminal charges could be filed. If you are feeling daring and you have some time to spare, you could try to drive I-70 through the mountains this weekend. It's supposed to be open, and hopefully it will stay that way. One lane of I-70 in each direction through Glenwood Canyon as of Saturday afternoon. CDOT made the big announcement this morning. Interstate's been shut down for almost 2 weeks because of the multiple mudslides that have come down the canyon walls. And CDOT says it does have more cleanup work to do before Saturday. There's 15 feet of roadway that is just gone, wiped away. They'll replace that, test it for stability. Again, one lane each direction by Saturday afternoon. CDOT thinks it could be October or November before all lanes of I-70 through Glenwood Canyon are back open. So emergency alerts are important, and they are hard to do, it would appear. Last week, Arapahoe County accidentally hit up the whole metro area with an alert about bad water in one part of Inglewood. Today, FEMA tested its nationwide alert system. They tested it and found out not many people got the test alert on their cell phones. Our Marshall Zellinger, always alert, wonders why this is so difficult.
It's 12:20 at Union Station. The clock's right there on the wall. At 12:20 Mountain Time, cell phones nationwide were supposed to be hit with an emergency alert text message. Silence.
You don't want a 100% success rate on an exercise because otherwise you don't find the gaps.
James Taylor, call him JT. He's a public safety liaison for FEMA based in Colorado. And his phone and his co-workers' phones were just like your phone.
What I'm gathering from the staff that work with me, none of us received the test message either, which is actually a success because that means we need to go in and do that little bit of work to accept test messages. So in the future, it will come through.
Today's test was supposed to send messages over TV and radio and also text emergency alerts to your phone. Except it turns out test messages are opt-in only, and most phones are automatically opted out. On an Android, it's a flip of the switch. On an iPhone, it's a very simple 12-character number that you're supposed to dial to get test messages. But was this test about testing to see who was opted in or who would really get a message if there was an emergency?
How do we word that message so that people understand it? How do we word that message so they'll actually take action? So there's a lot of parts to the test other than just press a button and make a phone vibrate or buzz or make a noise.
It's kind of the opposite of last Wednesday when Englewood issued a boil order for a specific part of the city, but it hit cell phones beyond the shaded area that Arapahoe County's Emergency Management Director Nathan Fogg intended.
We understand that there is bleed over that's going to happen within 1/10 of a mile. This bled significantly farther than we anticipated.
We got it in Arvada, 68th and Wadsworth.
I got the alert in unincorporated Jeffco.
We got it in Highlands Ranch, too.
We got this in Park Hill, too. Oops.
I would rather over-alert or over-notify people. It wasn't our intent. We want those folks to leave those notifications on, understanding that it is an imperfect system and that there may be bleed over.
Two different issues here. Arapahoe County's Emergency Management Director believes it'll be a few more weeks before they know why so many in the metro area got that alert for Englewood last week. As for FEMA today, they say, if this were a real emergency, we would have received the message because you don't have to opt into those messages. You could opt out, but you don't have to opt in. But I'm still confused about what the point of the test was today, whether it was to find out who wasn't opted into the tests or if we could actually get them on our phones.
I mean, love and respect them, but how in the world do they know that it would work if they ran a test that did not go through?
I asked if they will get data, and they're going to run it up the food chain from Colorado to Washington, D.C. Will they have data that says, we sent this many messages to Colorado, or to everyone, we sent this many messages, and they would have gone through if those phones were opted in. They're checking to see if that data exists.
Well, knock on artisanal plexiglass. You hope that that's not needed tomorrow, because I don't think we're so confident that it works. All right. Thank you, Marshall. Hey, Hey, you all are not shy about your suggestions for your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaigns, and we love the suggestions. Few of you pointed out that we have only done one weekly giving project to benefit a pet-related charity in this pet-crazy state. So how about a second? Your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign this week is supporting Colorado Pet Pantry. It's a rapidly expanding network that's feeding pets across Colorado so their owners don't have to give them up. Colorado Pet Pantry's model is really simple and really efficient. They don't pay for the food. They take donated food from pet food suppliers, food that's about to expire, and then this nonprofit rushes it out through its network to food banks, animal rescues, and standalone events across Colorado. Nonprofit's been distributing pet food like that since 2013 and got 5.1 million pet meals out to owners who otherwise would have struggled to afford pet food. Pet owner who can afford to feed a pet is a pet owner who can afford to keep a pet. If you've watched Next for any amount of time, you might remember my once-in-a-lifetime dog, Porter. Could not imagine being in a position where our family would have had to surrender him, or any family surrender any pet, because of tough finances at home. Colorado Pet Pantry figures that it can work its distribution system to feed a dog or a cat for a month for $5. And we happen to know some folks who specialize in putting together their $5 donations every week. Text thanks to 303-871-1491. I'll send you that link to donate. First 50 people to come in with $5, I will match each one of you. Coloradans struggling through hard financial times need their pets more than ever. With our help in Colorado Pet Pantry, more of those families can stay whole.
All of Colorado now knows the ugliness of living in bad air. Imagine living with elevated emissions every day.
Communities of color, low-income communities, are living in the front lines of environmental injustice and pollution.
A plan to take personal experience and make other lives better. There's research going on in Colorado to help save the pollinators that make nature work. Bumblebee nests turn out to be hard to find, unless you're him. Next.
Colorado's poor air quality lately has been hitting all of our lungs. It's a reminder that lower income communities and communities of color are more likely to be breathing worse air year-round in our state. Hilda Nucete, one of the state's new health equity commissioners, is making that issue her priority. Nucete was born in an oil camp in Venezuela. She says where she grew up was one of the most polluted neighborhoods in that entire country. She developed asthma, something that's really been exacerbated by our recent haze in Colorado. And she is hoping that her lived experience can help others. Specifically, she wants to start a conversation about equitable environmental health. Because while we're all talking about the air for the last week or so, it's nothing new to people who live in neighborhoods next to our highways and our industrial areas.
Latino children are 3 times more prone to dying of asthma than any other ethnic group in the United States. They're living in a neighborhood that's more polluted, so they have to deal with all the different ramifications of that pollution in the neighborhood.
Says the first step is making sure that affected communities are educated about the health issues that directly correlate to poor air quality.
Another hot, hazy, smoky day here in Denver, but take a look at some of these stats. Maybe even quiz the kiddos at dinner time. We have had 37 days in a row with air quality alerts. Today makes day 40 in the 90-degree heat. Plus, this is our 5th day in a row with the top 10 worst air quality across the entire world. It was a sizzling afternoon, 96, just 1 degree shy of our record high of 97. But all of this changes early tomorrow. Here comes that cold front. That'll help scour out some of the smoke, kick up a couple of scattered showers up in the high country. So some nice improvement is on the way. The temperatures tomorrow, slightly cooler too, as we see these drop back into the lower 90s. Look at the 7-day forecast. Better chance for storms for us on Friday.
I don't need to tell you why bumblebees are important.
A lot of the plants are pollinated by bumblebees. And if we lose the bumblebees, then we lose those plants. And if we lose the plants, then that's like the basis of their food chain.
Before we can learn how to protect these essential members of our environment, we gotta find them first. Meet Darwin. Next.
We use the graphics because it's cheaper than billboards, but it doesn't appear that any of those people could see the graphics. Dogs can be trained to sniff out all kinds of stuff. Drugs, bombs, people. Now bumblebees. At least one dog can do it. 9 News photojournalist Brian Wendland met up with a bumblebee researcher and her very good boy as they went looking for nests in the mountains near Fairplay.
Cool. You ready, bud?
Colorado's mountains are home to some pretty important pollinators.
Bumblebees are worth billions of dollars to the U.S. economy every year.
But it's hard to conserve those fat little furry flyers.
That is one of the queens. Oh, she's beautiful. Check her out.
Because we don't know a whole lot about bumblebee nesting.
So finding the nest is really freaking hard. And that's why I've got Darwin. I tried lots of other ways to do it before. And dogs just seem to be the best bet right now.
That's where Darwin and Jacqueline Staub come in.
I'm a bee researcher, and I'm currently doing research with Appalachian State University. And this is my dog, America's first conservation detection dog that specializes in finding bumblebee nests, Darwin the bee dog.
Darwin has trained for this since he was 6 months old.
Come on, search.
He works his way around willows, sniffing for bees.
Watching Darwin work is just a beautiful thing, honestly.
When he finds a nest, Staub's work begins.
But yeah, so the nest is right over here.
She collects species data, notes how well drained the soil is, measures the slope, and checks how far away it is from a linear feature like the edge of a forest.
The more we know about bumblebee nesting, the better we'll be able to preserve and conserve the species.
Staub says that conservation is crucial right now.
Obviously, there's going to be cascading ecological effects if we lose keystone pollinators in any environment, much less the alpine.
As tough as this work is, Staub says they aren't quitting.
They're just such a challenge, but Darwin is not afraid of a challenge, so he's ready to go, and we're going to find them all.
For Next, I'm Brian Wendland.
Things that you did not know were a thing are some of my favorite kind of Next stories. Thanks to Brian Wendland for that one. Staub's starting a nonprofit to raise money to fund bumblebee research and to train more bee dogs. Before anybody gets all worked up that Darwin's off leash, she gets permission from whoever owns or manages that land for him to work unleashed. Hey, speaking of, no pets in this state should go hungry. Colorado Pet Pantry helps feed 85,000 dogs and cats in our state every month so that they can stay with their owners, and we can help them deliver even more food to more families. Next. Colorado Pet Pantries, nonprofit that's been connecting low-income pet owners with free pet food for years on the Front Range, and they just expanded out to the West Slope. They're holding 94 pet food banks each month. They stock human food banks with pet food and give to rescues as well. Text thanks to 303-871-1491. You can join me and a bunch of great people in tossing a few bucks their way for this week's Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign. No pet owner should be forced to give up the pet they love because they cannot afford food. And Colorado Pet Pantry keeps that from happening. I just checked the total a second ago, and you guys are a few dollars short of $10,000 raised in 15 minutes, which is astounding. Nobody does that. Nobody does that, except for all of you. Lana and Mark Anderson emailed about 5 minutes ago to say, want to let you know that we've enjoyed watching Next over the last 5 years. As my husband and I look to our future, we've decided to move back to the Kansas City area to be closer to family. Lana and Mark write that they'll continue to follow Next on the 9 News app and through the micro-giving campaigns. Lana and Mark, thank you so much for being a part of the first 5 years of Next. Thanks for taking us with you when you go. And for all the Next expats watching out there, what do your new city or states do better in Colorado that we can look forward to? Or what do you miss? Let us know. We'll see you next time.